Let me remind you of something powerful today. What you are facing right now did not surprise God. Before the pressure showed up, before the disappointment, before the door closed, God already knew. And more than that, He already had a plan. We often think life is happening randomly, that problems appear suddenly and force God to react. But God does not react. He plans. Long before the struggle entered your life, your purpose was already established. Long before the attack came, the victory was already prepared. You see, we panic because we see the problem first. God is calm because He saw the solution first. What looks like a sudden crisis to you is simply a chapter in a story God has already finished writing. That means your current situation is not the end. It's evidence that the plan is still unfolding. If God allowed you to step into this season, it's because this season has something necessary for where He is taking you. Sometimes we ask, why did this happen to me? But the better question is, what is God preparing me for? Because purpose always comes before pressure. God never releases a calling without first shaping the person who will carry it. And shaping often happens in uncomfortable places. The delay, the confusion, the resistance, these are not signs that God has changed His mind. They are signs that He is working deeply, carefully, intentionally. Think about it. If the enemy could truly stop God's plan, it would have happened already. If your past mistakes could cancel your future, you wouldn't still be standing. If your weakness disqualified you, God wouldn't have chosen you in the first place. The very fact that you are still here, still believing, still hoping is proof that God's hand is still on your life. We often see obstacles as detours, but God sees them as tools. The obstacle is not blocking the plan. It is shaping you for the plan. The pressure is not destroying you, it is developing you. And the timing that feels late to you is actually precise in God's eyes. He knows exactly when you will be ready. And He knows exactly when the blessing will no longer crush you, but elevate you. So don't lose heart when things don't make sense. Don't doubt God just because you don't understand the process. Trust that before the problem appeared, the plan was already secure. Trust that nothing you are facing today has the power to rewrite what God has already ordained for your life. What God planned before the storm, He will complete after the storm. One of the hardest lessons we ever have to learn is that waiting does not mean God has said no. In fact, many times waiting is proof that God is saying, not yet. We live in a world that celebrates speed, fast results, quick success, instant answers. So when God allows a delay, we assume something is wrong. We assume we missed our moment or made a mistake. But God does not waste time, and He does not play with your future. When He delays, He is developing something in you that cannot be formed any other way. Think about it. If God gave you everything you asked for the moment you ask, would you be ready to carry it? Would your faith be strong enough? Would your character be steady enough? Would your heart remain humble enough? God is far more interested in who you are becoming than how fast you are progressing. That is why the waiting season is not empty, it is active. God is working in ways you cannot see, strengthening your roots before allowing visible growth. During the delay, God teaches you to trust Him when there is no evidence. He teaches you to walk by faith and not by sight. Anyone can praise God when the blessing arrives, but real faith is built when you continue to believe while nothing seems to be changing. The waiting season strips away self-reliance and replaces it with dependence on God. It trains your spirit to listen, your heart to surrender, and your mind to stay focused even when emotions try to pull you into doubt. And let me say this clearly, delay does not reduce the promise. Waiting does not shrink the blessing. God does not say, because you waited, I will give you less. No, when God finally releases what He promised, it is always worth the wait. The delay was not about punishment, it was about preparation. What you receive after waiting is stronger, deeper, and more sustainable than what you could have handled earlier. Many people quit in the waiting season. They walk away too soon. They give up just before the breakthrough. But those who remain faithful in the delay discover something powerful. God's timing protects you. It keeps you from doors that would have damaged you and pushes you toward opportunities that will shape your destiny. What felt like God slowing you down was actually Him guiding you safely forward. So if you are in a season where nothing seems to be moving, don't rush, don't panic, and don't compare your journey with others. God is not late. He is intentional. And when the time is right, when you are ready, and the purpose is aligned, what He promised will come to pass. What God delays, He never denies. Let me tell you something you need to settle in your spirit once and for all. Opposition does not mean you are off track. In many cases, opposition is the clearest sign that you are exactly where God wants you to be. If what God placed inside you were small, no resistance would rise against it. But when your purpose is great, pressure will show up. People will misunderstand you, doubt you, talk about you, and sometimes even work against you. Yet none of that has the authority to cancel what God has already approved. Too many people give human opinions more power than divine purpose. One negative voice, one rejection, one closed door, and suddenly they begin to question their calling. But hear this clearly. No person can stop what God has started. No critic can undo God's decision. No enemy can rewrite God's plan. When God says yes, no amount of opposition can turn it into a no. What other see as resistance, God uses as confirmation. Sometimes the opposition doesn't come from strangers. It comes from people close to you. The ones who knew you before. The ones who remember your past. The ones who can't imagine you becoming more than what they've seen. But God never consults your past to decide your future. He never asks permission from people to elevate you. If He did, many of us would never move forward. God's plan is not built on human approval. It is built on divine purpose. Opposition has a way of testing your focus. It tries to pull your attention away from God and place it on people. But the moment you start fighting people, you stop trusting God. You were never called to defend your destiny. God Himself is your defender. Your responsibility is not to argue, explain, or prove yourself. Your responsibility is to stay obedient, stay faithful, and keep moving forward even when it's uncomfortable. Here's the truth many people miss. Opposition does not weaken God's plan, it strengthens it. Pressure produces perseverance. Resistance builds spiritual muscle. Every challenge you survive becomes evidence that God's hand is on your life. What was meant to stop you ends up sharpening you. What was meant to silence you ends up giving you a stronger voice. The very thing that tried to break you becomes part of your testimony. So don't be discouraged when doors close, when people walk away, or when you feel pushed back. God uses opposition to position you. He uses resistance to redirect you. And He uses adversity to reveal His power in your life. If God allowed the opposition, it's because He already knows you will overcome it. When God is for you, nothing standing against you can stand for long. There are moments in life when you feel completely empty, when your strength is gone and your confidence is shaken. You try to pray, but the words feel weak. You try to move forward, but your legs feel heavy. And in those moments, you start to believe that God works best through strong people, successful people, people who have it all together. But that belief is not true. God has never depended on human strength to accomplish divine purpose. In fact, some of the greatest work God will ever do in your life will happen in your weakest moments. We often think weakness disqualifies us. But weakness is actually an invitation. It's the place where pride falls away and trust begins. When you reach the end of yourself, you finally make room for God. As long as you believe you can handle everything on your own, you rely on your ability. But when your ability runs out, God's power steps in. That is not failure, that is alignment. God does not wait for you to feel strong before He moves. He waits for you to surrender. Your tears don't scare Him. Your doubts don't push Him away. Your brokenness does not make Him change His plan. He is not looking for perfection. He is looking for dependence. And when you stop pretending you're okay and start trusting Him honestly, something powerful begins to happen inside you. Think about this. If your weakness could stop God's plan, He would have chosen someone else. If your fear could cancel your purpose, God would never have called you. If your insecurity had the final word, you wouldn't still be here. The fact that God chose you knowing every flaw, every struggle, every moment of doubt proves that your weakness was never a surprise. God already built His strength into your assignment. In your weak moments, God teaches you to listen more than you speak. He slows you down so you can hear His voice clearly. He removes false confidence so real faith can grow. Strength can sometimes make us careless, but weakness makes us careful, humble, and dependent on God. That dependence becomes your greatest spiritual advantage. And here's something you need to understand. God's power is most visible when there is no explanation other than Him. When you succeed in your own strength, people praise you. But when you rise from a place of weakness, confusion, and brokenness, God gets the glory. What you couldn't do on your own becomes proof that God was working all along. So don't hide your weakness. Don't be ashamed of the season where you feel small. Don't walk away just because you feel unqualified. This is not the moment God leaves you. This is the moment He carries you. What feels like the lowest point of your life may be the very place where God reveals His greatest power. God does His strongest work when you finally stop trying to be strong. There are seasons in life when everything feels like it is moving backward. You lose what you worked hard for. You fail where you thought you would succeed. Doors you prayed would open suddenly close. And it feels like all your progress has been erased. In those moments, it's easy to believe that you've fallen behind or that God has changed His mind about you. What looks like a setback to you is often God setting something up that you cannot see yet. God never wastes pain. He never allows loss without purpose. When something is removed from your life, it's not always because you failed, it's often because it no longer fits where God is taking you. Some relationships can't go with you into the next season. Some opportunities look good but would limit your growth. Some paths feel comfortable but lead in the wrong direction. So God steps in, not to hurt you, but to protect you. We judge our lives by what we lose, but God judges by where we are being positioned. A setback doesn't mean you're being pushed down. It often means you're being moved over. God rearranges your environment before He releases the next level of your calling. What feels like disruption is actually divine alignment. He is shifting things behind the scenes so that when the right moment comes, you are standing in the right place. Sometimes God allows failure to refine your focus. Success too early can make you rely on the wrong things. But failure humbles you, teaches you, and sharpens your discernment. It shows you what matters and what doesn't. It builds depth in your character that success alone never could. When you rise again, you rise wiser, stronger, and more grounded than before. And understand this, the setback is not permanent. God is not finished with you. The chapter that hurts the most is often the one that prepares you for the greatest breakthrough. What tried to destroy you ends up directing you. What you thought delayed you actually protected you. When God closes one door, it's not to leave you stranded, it's to guide you toward the door that fits your destiny. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and thank God for what didn't work out. You will realize that if things had gone your way, you would have missed something far greater. God sees the full picture, while you only see the moment. That's why trust is essential in the process. Even when life doesn't make sense, God's plan never stops making progress. So don't let disappointment define you. Don't allow failure to silence you. Don't let a setback convince you that your story is over. God is still arranging things in your favor, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. What looks like a setback today is setting up a greater tomorrow. Let me leave you with a truth that will steady your heart. When everything feels uncertain, God finishes what He starts. People walk away. Energy fades. Motivation rises and falls. But God is not like us. He does not begin a work and then abandon it halfway. When God places His hand on your life, He is fully committed to the process. Even when the process is long, difficult, and uncomfortable. There will be moments when you feel tired of trying, tired of believing, tired of hoping. Moments when progress seems slow and answers seem far away. And in those moments, the enemy will whisper that it's too late, that you've gone too far off course, that you should quit. But quitting is not an option when God is involved. The very fact that you are still breathing, still standing, still reaching for God is proof that the story is not finished yet. God is not intimidated by your slow progress. He is not frustrated by your questions. He is not disappointed because you stumbled. He already accounted for your weaknesses when He called you. The process was never about perfection, it was about perseverance. Growth does not always look like sudden breakthroughs. Sometimes growth looks like staying faithful when nothing changes. Sometimes it looks like getting back up one more time when you feel like giving up. Understand this. God's timeline is not rushed, but it is intentional. He knows exactly what He is doing in your life. Every delay, every detour, every difficult season is working together to shape you into the person who can carry the blessing without losing their faith, their humility, or their dependence on Him. What God is building in you matters just as much as what He is bringing to you. And even when you feel incomplete, God sees the finished work. He is not focused on where you are. He is focused on where He is taking you. You may feel like you're still under construction, but God never leaves a project unfinished. The same God who started the transformation will bring it to completion at the right time. So don't measure your life by how far you still have to go. Measure it by how far God has already brought you. Every step forward, no matter how small, is evidence that God is still working. Every lesson learned, every tear cried, every prayer whispered in faith is part of the process that God will honor. Hold on when it's hard. Stay faithful when it's slow. Trust God when it's unclear. Because the one who began the work in you is faithful to complete it. God never starts what He does not intend to finish.